do you do when you lose everything? I'm talking 20 million gone, homeless, humiliated. Most people would fold, but today's guest rewrote the playbook, starting from scratch and rising to build over 70 companies, create a 9-figure empire, and disrupt 3 major industries while staying grounded in one unshakable belief: wealth is built from within. Woo! Man, let me tell you, I am talking about none other than Damion Lupo, a serial entrepreneur, financial philosopher, and a bold mind behind the EQRP revolution and FrameTec, a company changing the way we build homes. 4 times faster, 90% less waste, and 10 times the impact. He is not just a comeback story. He is a clarity story, a courage story, a mindset mastery story. And today he's here to drop the kind of wisdom that just might shake you out of your comfort zone and into your next level. Are you ready? Damon, welcome to Mindset Mastery Moments. We're so happy to have you here.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit of one of the industries that I have been allowed into the last 3 years. So, Damon, I want to start with the truth most people skip over. You hit rock bottom, 20 million gone. You were homeless. What did that rock bottom moment teach you about your own mindset? And what became the first brick in building your comeback?
The biggest thing, whether it's 20 million or 20,000, when everything goes away, when you're literally sitting there with the basic human need of housing and shelter, and it goes away, and you live in a car or hotels, the lesson there was, wow, the failing, I actually didn't die. And there's this incredibly weird primal instinct that we have that we don't want to fail, because somehow we think that if we fail, we're going to be eaten by a wild animal in some weird way. And that's, having grown up in Alaska, if you make a mistake, you literally could be eaten by an animal. I used to dodge polar bears in one of my jobs in the Arctic Circle. And so that's real for very few people. But the rest of us, once you get past that primal fear that you're going to be eaten, you realize, oh, what's going to happen is it's either going to work, I'm going to win, or I'm going to learn something. And then all of a sudden it becomes a race to how many times you can learn something, because that's where all the growth happens. And it's an incredibly empowering thing, even though it's like, oh my God, I lost things. And then when you have a little perspective, you go, dang, this is really good. So it goes from bad to good, and it's the mindset, it's the shift, and it's incredibly powerful for the next launch. I think you're muted.
Oh, and I was. Thank you. I read that, and I read that you started your first company at age 11. So a lot of people are blown away that I started my first official entrepreneur venture at 17, but 11, a video game rental business. That's early genius. Can you tell us a little bit more about what your mindset looked like at 11 to start in your entrepreneurial journey?
Well, for anybody that watched TV in the 90s, there was a show called Doogie Howser. I was not Doogie Howser. I was not a child prodigy. I was simply trying to figure out how to pay for video games. And it was a problem, which entrepreneurs tend to have. We see problems and we go solve them. Sometimes it's our own problem. My problem is my parents told me that we were broke, we had no money, and I felt a lot of guilt. And I said, well, I don't want to try to take money from somebody or accept or even ask for it. So I'll create it. And it was the beginning of just going out there and having that self-reliance and initiative. We all have the ability to do it. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing when you see somebody that just quits and they say, I don't know, and they stop, because but we've been trained that that's okay in some weird way. The reality, though, is if you see a problem, we're all capable of going and figuring it out. It's part of the human experience. We have this incredible brain. And so it started there. And then everywhere I went, it seemed I saw problems and opportunities, and I bumbled into businesses that mostly didn't work for a long time. And eventually I started learning, oh, try that, do this. And eventually it starts making money and things work. And then the ego takes over, and that's when you lose 20 million bucks. So there's this whole process, but it was really about the problems. It was seeing problems and then being inspired to go solve them.
I love that. A lot of people don't realize one of the things that my dear says, Dr. Kremel says, money is a reward for solving a problem. So you pick the problem and you solve them. And the nature of the problem and the size of the problem is what determines how you're going to get paid to do it. What did your at 11, what did you learn about the value of service and making money before the world told you what was realistic, really? Because you're 11 at this point. What did you learn about service and making money before the world really told you the realistic things that we all grew up in here afterwards?
I don't know if I realized it as much then, but I did have the experience that money is not a linear experience based on time. And most
Mm,
people's experiences, I trade time for money, and it's very linear. And my time is worth 10 or 50 or 100 or $1,000 an hour. And so every minute they think, oh, it's either I'm experiencing something in life or I'm getting money. And if I go to the beach, that's costing me $12,000 or whatever per day. And it's really hard to not be obsessed with work and to have experiences. I've had that problem for a long time. the
mm,
when you have a business, when you think about leverage, when you think about creating, using your mind, you start to disconnect from that linear experience of money for
mm,
time, and it allows you to say, okay, it's about the solution. And then all of a sudden you go, oh, I want this experience, and you stop thinking. Like lawyers are probably the worst because lawyers that have this experience of my time is $500 per hour, and so
yes.
they're always on, and for them to be off, it's like, oh, me being off, me sleeping is costing me $500 an hour. There's got to be a break in that experience, and you do that by exponential thinking and value creation based on solutions, not on trading your time as a slave for a clock.
That is a mindset shift for me. So you're a big believer of failure is necessary in your fail forward framework. How did you learn to fall forward and how do you know leverage? I mean, like in this time, how do you leverage right now your mistakes into that $1 million lessons that you have, especially the ones that nearly took you out when you lost 20 million?
It's funny because I for a while I was snowboarding and I was falling forward, I was falling backwards, I was falling every direction, and it can hurt. It
Yeah.
usually does, especially when it whips you really hard. You might get knocked out, concussions, and then you get back up and you go, oh, okay, that was an experience, and I'm going to learn how to not do that the same way. And then you find a way to run into a tree, and you find a new way to get hurt. And these are all the lessons, and then you just keep going and you get better and better. You stop doing the same ones, but what you realize is that pain is not a problem if you can start to embrace it. But people are afraid of the idea of pain and they anticipate pain. And so they try to avoid it. They wait for all the green lights and they never leave the house. And it's this avoidance that keeps us trapped. And then eventually we
Mhm.
get to a point where we regret the things that we didn't do. And so it's about embracing pain. Entrepreneurs and business owners are the ones that embrace pain, and they get to a point where pain doesn't hurt. It's why I get into a cold plunge regularly. I start the day getting into something that hurts,
Yeah.
and then I embrace that, and everything else is easy because I stop being afraid of the pain. I start to step into it, and literally stepping into it, and it's part of that process. But you have to train yourself, and then you realize, oh, this isn't going to kill me, and it makes you stronger and more powerful and more resilient and more able to move into things without hesitating. It's like it's a huge hack.
Yeah, it is. I love it is a huge act and it is a mindset shift for sure. Seems so simple, but very, very transformational altogether. You talk about multi-industry moves and decision making. And there are times when even because of the traditional world that I come from and how I am as an entrepreneurial mind, it's like a lot of people be surprised that I have some relationship with construction and then I've part of a cement company now I've invested in and we're working on that. And then I do all the podcasts and mindset mastery. I have a nonprofit and I have a for-profit with coaching and speaking. And it's like makes, I think on paper, I don't make sense to my traditional thought process, but I do it anyway because it's what I feel called to. You've built in precious metals, retirement plans, real estate, and now construction as well. That's some serious vertical range. I want to ask you, how do you decide what's worth building next? What's your litmus test for the industries or ideas that you end up saying yes to?
They start now. They start with a premise. What is the mission? What's the purpose of me? And so I decide what I'm going to do based on the purpose I believe I'm here for, and
Mm-hmm.
the purpose I'm here for is to is to help people develop into a place where they're financially free, where they're not thinking about money as the guiding force. It's when money becomes something that's handled, it's taken care of. So whether it's
Yes.
retirement accounts, and people don't, they like, I developed a little playbook called Turnkey Retirement, where people can take those 10 principles and have a turnkey retirement, so they're not worried about being 50, 60, 70 years old and running out of money. So every business, precious metals, building a manufacturing company that creates a lot of wealth for investors and solves a major problem, it's elevating humanity and making it's a win for everybody. So this idea of
Yes.
stakeholder success, it's truly about everybody winning. It's not a win lose. It's not like, like the options environment in the markets where somebody has to lose for somebody else to win. I don't believe that that's the case. I think that you actually can have everybody winning if you think about things in terms of abundance, as opposed to Malthusian economics where there is a scarcity effect. I don't believe in
Yes.
that. I think that that's made up. That's human nonsense. So all of these things are based on the idea of freedom. And when we can be free from the money that controls most people's lives, it's modern day slavery, the money thing. And so all of these businesses are they're part of that. There's a flywheel, and
Yeah.
anything that comes at me, there's a couple of questions. Does this fit that? And do I have bandwidth to be able to not have an affair on my primary thing? And the reality is, I am married to what I do, and I'm not going to I'm not going to be polyamorous, and I'm not going to be, like, that's not my
Come on.
lifestyle. So,
Yeah.
I mean, hey, for each their own. But
Right.
I'm being really careful about being focused, and that's one of the greatest mistakes people make, is they get splintered. And so I may add something on that makes sense if it doesn't take away from the other stuff. If it enhances it, then I'm going to do it, but it's
Enhance.
got to be in alignment with the mission.
That's right. And so that I love what you said. And so when I talk about in the past few months me becoming involved in cement, that's exactly what it is. It was not going to take from who I am and what I do. It's going to enhance it, but it again, it's creating win-win opportunities even in the space, all of the spaces that I work in. And then it adds a whole lot more revenue to my network that I need. And it's something that takes time. It's going to take time, but I'm in for the long haul. And I really don't have to do much of the legwork. There's people for that. I get to be and do what I do in that arena and also put myself in a position to bring more income to what and create opportunities for people around the globe with that. So I love that. It makes it, it's almost like you just give me like a, oh, check. Not that I was necessarily looking for it because like I said, I don't really think of how I do what I do. I say yes with I'm solving a problem that I'm fine and it doesn't take me away from what I love to do. You talk about wealth wisdom, the 9 costly mistakes. You teach that wealth isn't an accident, it's a result of clarity and avoiding the traps. Let's talk about those 9 costly mistakes. Can you walk us through one or two of those that most people overlook? And what should they be really doing instead?
Well, there's a couple that sort of work hand in hand. We just started talking about, and that's just chasing too many squirrels. It's like when you see an animal in the wild that's hungry, if they chase everything, they stay hungry. You got to chase one thing and go after it and say, this is my target.
Yeah.
And the other one is, there's this idea that choosing the right thing is the most important. And what's
Mm,
important is choosing. It's literally choosing something, and it doesn't matter whether it's the right thing or whether it works. It matters that you work on that thing. And that's one of these
mm,
mistakes that people, they'll spend all this time, they'll spend years trying to figure out that exact right thing, and then they end up maybe doing something and they go, oh, not the right thing, and then they go, dang, why did I wait 10 or 15 years or 10 months or whatever it is? So it's really about taking action. It's the idea of progress over perfection. We're trained, we go to school to get high
yes.
grades, high marks,
Mm,
and if you get half wrong, you're a failure. And the
yeah.
reality is, if you get half wrong in anything in the real world outside of academia, one, if you're in sports, you're one of the greatest ever. If you're in business, you're a billionaire. So it's not about getting half right. It's about getting something right, and you're going to get mostly things wrong.
Ooh, what a mindset shift. Ooh, that just took everything up in me because you said it and I could just see it. Boom, 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 right? Listed out for me. Let's talk about the trust factor in business and investing because I've been there. Like, I came to the USA when I was 24, and I saw my ex husband at the time who had been investing since he was 17 years old. His money was just this money was just going away. It was in 2024 and everything was crashing. We'd already started crashing down. That finally hit a couple years later. You say that trust isn't a buzzword, it's the currency of the next generation of leaders. In high stakes situations, how do you lead with trust, authenticity, even when the pressure to perform is very, 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 very large?
Well, this goes back. I mean, there's a couple of great books like At the Speed of Trust by Covey. There's also one by called Power versus Force. And
Mhm.
when you're in pressure cookers, if you don't have trust, you have a lot of force and you don't have power. If you start with building teams and relationships based on trust, then you have all this power and it doesn't require anything. In fact, it doesn't even require you participating because the trust is built. And one of the things people do is they think about things in terms of money. How do I get people? How do I get things that are less expensive? And so that they end up with people that they can't really trust. So there's really two things. It's having the people that you trust because they are trustworthy, because they have integrity and they have intelligence around what they do. Like they're literally world class. I used to hire the cheapest people. They weren't world class, and I ended up having to go fix a lot of problems bumbling through them.
Yeah.
Now there's a combination of trusting other people. Do you trust people? If you're sitting there and having to go in there, and I'm still doing this with some people because I made mistakes where I hired people that didn't know how to close loops. They didn't know how to get things done. So I'm looking and asking, and that's the wrong person to have on a world-class team. But the other side of this is, do you trust yourself? And most
Mm,
people don't trust themselves. They don't trust themselves to either be worth something or to have the intelligence or to make instinctual decisions because they don't have experience. This is the problem with somebody at 25 that's out there attempting to build something or coaching people. They deep down don't have the trust of themselves because they don't have the experience. And it's not wrong. It's just part of the life cycle. Like you have to have, you can't hack that. You're not going to get that in a weekend with Tony Robbins. Love Tony, but you're not going to beat your chest and have wisdom. Like that's not how it works. When I've spent 25 years in martial arts and I have 4 different black belts. I didn't get those by shopping at a sporting goods store, and I didn't go do. Tony has said this and it cracked me up. He said, I have a black belt and I did it in 4 weeks. And it was just a matter of mastering these things. And I'm like, Tony, you're full of BS. Like, that's not true. I'm sorry. I've been like, look, there's a process. And when you go through it, those are the people that you want to have around you. You want to have people that have spent decades, gone through cycles. They have
yes.
instinctual intelligence, and it's called emotional intelligence and wisdom. Those are the people that can see around the corner. When you have those people on a team, they can see around the corner. So you have this trust of them being able to see into the future. That's who you want around you, not people that are trying to figure everything out based on a lack of experience. That's a
Come
disaster.
on. Come on. I just recently did a hire for someone to work on my systems, and she's just part of a team because I need quite a few people for different things I do. And she 24 hours, she's got the assignment, she knows, and I'm watching her circle in the system. And I said, "Can we meet in the morning?" By the time we meet, I already removed her from my systems. And I told her, "Thank you. And here's some money for circling." Well, I'd rather pay her a little bit of money for circling than for her to circle and waste my time the next few weeks or something, or she breaks something in there that I'm going to have to spend, and it was just a poor hire, right? And a lot of people put things on their resume, and a lot of people go to coaches to teach them how to interview. And you can't, when it's proof time, it's not there.
That's one of the biggest challenges I've had the last few years. People have great stories, but they don't have a whole lot of substance, or they have a lot of substance that's just messy and it's stuff. I had some people that were actually dear friends, and they worked for me for about a year, and I was watching them produce a lot of stuff. They were using AI and third-party contractors. They had all this stuff, and I said, "How is this actually moving the needle in the business?" And it was just very busy and a lot of things, a lot of shiny objects and colorful things. And I realized they just knew how to play the game like people that know how to interview. They can do that, but they can't actually get results. The bottom line is, can you produce a result? In business, it's about doing something where you create value and you charge a quarter of what you create. So if you create $1 million, you charge a quarter million or whatever.
Right.
But when people show up and they say, "Look, I charged you $250,000," and you go, "How did that actually change my revenue?" And you realize it didn't, but it was pretty. You made a mistake.
Shiny object syndrome. I love that because, like I tell people, I am an entrepreneur that's becoming, that, I mean, and that speaks, coaches, and trains. and I don't coach as much. I do more consulting. So my mindset is not, I work in an industry in this space when I say speaker coach trainer sometimes, where I'm looking at all these people who just, they buy their way in a magazine, they buy awards, they buy these things, and I'm like, what the hell do they even do? I don't see any results. I don't see any people getting transformed. I don't see any impact. Just make it make sense for me. And I'm like, you're trying to make sense of something that you don't relate to, so just leave it alone. So I'd rather have dinner with someone like you if I'm allowed to, if I get the opportunity, but someone who is doing the work, who's back there getting stuff done, than some guy who gets up and gets in his Ferrari and goes to the office and he's making six figure. I'm not interested in those conversations. I remember, like, as a single, when I became single again, like, people approaching me from that perspective because they see me. I'm like, no, I'm a roots person. Show me what the hell you're doing and how you're making it better. I don't care if you got $10 million, because if one stupid thing happens, that goes away. Are you going to be able to rebuild that? Because I'm checking out your mindset. I'm gauging how you work, how you show up, and the results that you get. Otherwise, then I don't want to do it. Even people will even show you fake work that's AI generated as they work. Well, I learned that this time, obviously. But I love it. Let's talk about the EQRP disruption, that framework. It's not something that's typical retirement vehicle. You say that it's a weapon to financial freedom. What makes this system so different from traditional retirement plans? And why should we even want to get involved in it? Because I'm very, very curious.
So what's interesting is, for most people, retirement's a passive activity, and this idea that if I just give money to a system, to Wall Street, to an advisor, to my 401k, then I'll show up one day at 50 or 60 or whatever it is,
Never made
and there'll
sense.
be enough money and it'll be fine. And the reality is, it honestly doesn't matter. I've never seen anybody that did that game and showed up and said, "Oh yeah, it was fine." There's always an angst, and it's something you just commented on. It's this, when you shift from passive to active, when you're actually engaging in building
Mm,
and investing, then start to develop skills. And if you have 2 million or 5 million or 10 million when you retire, you actually understand how you got there. If people don't do that, if it's all passive, they wake up one day at 55 or 60 and they say, "I've got money, but I'm afraid to lose it, and I have no idea how to get it, and I don't have 30 more years to go build it again." So you're never really free. You're sitting there freaked out by the money. So the
mm,
idea of financial freedom is not a pile of money. You mentioned $10 million. It doesn't matter if somebody has $10 million. Do they have the confidence, which is their mindset? It's their understanding of how they create it. If you, like Henry Ford was asked, what happens if all your money goes away? And he said, "I'd have it back in 5 years." That was his mindset. That was his confidence. He had built the muscle around that. There's a
yes.
money muscle. But if you don't actively do it, and I always say this is kind of like sex. If you're in an environment where you have passive sex, you just lay around and say, "Please do me." That's kind of like the environment of retirement. Somebody's leaving you. They're like, "You suck. You're terrible." If you're
Out.
actively engaged, same thing with money. You got to be active. Money
Yes.
respects active entropy, the energy that you put into it, and it will
Yes.
stay there. And then you have this relationship with it. So if you like sex, and you got to be active. If you like money, you got to be active. And most people can understand at least one of those.
Except hey, to me, it's one and the same. Um,
Totally.
Go saying that. People were like, "What do you mean?" That's what I feel, because the more options you create, more options for better quality sex when you have more money. Anyway, now let's talk about FrameTec. This blew me away. 4 times faster, builds 90% less waste. A completely new way to think about housing and sustainability. I missed the opportunity. I think that there was a tour that I missed to check this out. How did FrameTech come to life, and how is it changing the construction game? Because I'm all about this. Because I coach construction, people are entering into the field, making the transition into the construction industry, and I have my own notions. So I can't wait. Let's let's give me the deuce, give me the deuce.
It started in a guy's brain that had been around doing things, putting trusses together and building walls for decades. And he had this idea about let's do something different. It's interesting. Construction is close to education in terms of how fast it evolves. It takes decades. In fact, the last major thing that hit market, like mass market adoption, was the nail gun in 1954. So it's been 71 years.
Ooh,
And the reality is we have a problem. We're not building enough housing. We're about 10 million units
we're
behind.
short.
We go
Yeah,
backwards about a half a million a year. And it's because we don't have enough production, and our techniques aren't, and the people aren't available. So the idea here with FrameTech is that we component building, where you build walls, you build trusses in a factory, and then you bring them out, is how you get more framing out there. And framing is the core for most
oh,
92% of building. It's wood framing. And we have all these other ideas with concrete and 3D printing, but the core of what is used to build is still wood. It's sustainable. And but the problem is you can't get it, it's not enough is being produced. When you solve that problem, there's a ripple effect through everything else. So we build these walls to spec, so it's apartments, it's houses, it's custom, it's whatever. We get those into our plant and we build them there using a system. And I'll talk about the waste that we reduce. But because you're doing it in a contained environment, you can do it a lot faster. So we'll go from a slab to a framed house in 1 day now. That's how fast it is, which is about 4 times faster than normal, at least. And then when
yeah,
you build something in a manufacturing plant, you can imagine the quality so much better than being out in the wind and the rain and the snow, swinging a hammer where everything is wobbly and twisted and doesn't really look very good, but you don't know because it's hidden behind drywall. So we've
yeah.
got those two things. And then the last piece is incredible. The way that we have this patented material handling process, we take all of our wood that comes in the bunks and we put it on a conveyor belt and it gets scanned and cut, all the defects get pulled out of it, and then we finger join it together, so we end up with one continuous board. And then that board is cut, and so we take exact pieces that we want. Instead of taking a 12-foot board and cutting off 18 inches and throwing that away, we basically have sawdust in 1 inch pieces. So instead of a dumpster full of wood for a house, we're going to have a bag of sawdust and a few pieces of like little scraps on miter edge cuts.
Wow.
This is fundamentally different. It's exponentially better. It's not a 2% increase. It's literally 90+% less waste, which you can
Yeah.
imagine how much cost savings that is, how much better
Yes.
that is. It's better for the environment. It's better for everybody. And
Yes.
we had to think differently. Like, how do we do this better? People get stuck in their ways because they're milking the cow. They're like, oh, I'm making money. Why do I want to change it? I don't want to retool. You have to have somebody come in and say, all right, we have this idea. And then somebody else says, I want to put up $100 million, which is what we did. And now we're in production.
Yes. I heard about, I was talking to the welders and they were telling me about how much waste is in the welding process. And when I just learned what you said, I'm like, I wonder if you guys can do that with metal so they can have less waste. But here's a question that makes me curious. Why was reducing material waste so important to you particularly?
Because the environment is part of it's a stakeholder. I mean, we all
Yes.
live in it. It's
Yes.
funny because there's been this argument for decades about being a capitalist versus being an environmentalist, and the reality is we're all environmentalists. Nobody wants to choke on the air. Nobody wants to just look at a barren wasteland. Like that's a universal thing. And so I say it's not or. You can
It's
be
and
both,
yes,
right? So
we all have to be both. Yeah.
yeah, and in this case, we said, okay, how can we make it sure the communities win? And then it goes beyond that. It's literally asking, how does the community win, not just with jobs, but with building better families? And we do that by doing things that are very unique in this space. We literally have on-site medical facilities where we take care of not just injuries, but we have families come in and we're taking care of their wellness. We're not just giving them pharmaceutical. We're saying, how do we help you think about your eating? And so it's being proactive, preemptive. We have cafeterias that we're building out so people have access to real food and not just gas station food. And then
Yes.
one of the really fun things that is not seen in blue collar environments, you'll see it at places like banks and high tech, is childcare, which is brutal. Most
Oh,
people
that's
end up having like one spouse working just to pay for childcare. We're building childcare facilities so people have access to that on site. Not only does that change the economic environment, but imagine you're like, I can actually go see my kid at lunch, or I'm not
I love that.
freaked out racing off to pick them up because if in 12 minutes, if I'm late, it costs me $10 a
And
minute. We're
yes,
taking that out of the equation. So people go, well,
that's
you ask people, how do you like FrameTech? They go, I love it. Everything is awesome. It's new. They care about me. They know me. I'm never leaving. Like that's the environment here, which is very
yes.
unorthodox in this type of world.
Do you guys have, just curious, do you guys have operations here in Arizona?
That's where we're based, is in Arizona. We're here in just
Are
south
you
of
here in
Sedona.
Arizona?
Yeah, yeah, Sedona, Camp Verde area.
I I have to meet you guys. I'm here in Arizona too. That's like I always know it has to be a West Coaster that's working with my late my late hour booking. Awesome. So you talk about strategic patience and the long game mindset. You're clearly not a quick wins person. You play the long game. Can you share a moment when patience paid off and why playing the long game is really an edge as an entrepreneur?
It's funny because when I started doing real estate 25 years ago, I did it for a period of time for that first decade of this century. And when I started, I was buying houses and I was lease optioning them. Basically, I was the bank, and I was making a little bit of money sometimes, and sometimes I was just paying to have people that were sort of tenant slash borrowers, owners. But what was interesting is I kept going and I kept grinding. And 4 years later, the market changed. And so because I was farming and not hunting, all of a sudden it was like, wow, my houses, a lot of them had doubled in value. And I harvested. I had this huge event. So I thought, that's amazing. Well, then I thought I was really smart and it wasn't just the timing. And so I went out there and started flipping things and I lost money or had foreclosures on every house I flipped. And I went, okay, that's hunting. That's being impatient. And what I realized is I'm the world's worst flipper. I'm the world's worst trader. One of the times I lost all my money was I was trading in the stock market and I lost everything in one day. And I thought, okay, if you ever hear me talking about trading stocks, you should short it or do the opposite of whatever I do. I'm really good at seeing long term, envisioning things and being patient because I understand how the universe conspires with us, the God factor. Like if you trust, and that's where we come back to what we talked about in the beginning. If you understand how things work, or at least you trust it, it's amazing how it conspires with you, not against you. And when you start
Yes.
hunting, you get conspired against because you're more like taking versus creating.
Ooh, that is a mic drop right there. Oh, I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. Can you share a moment when patience paid off for you, particularly in the long game?
Yeah, so the last 10 years, there's been from starting the retirement space and building this core business around the mission and then expanding that, there's been most of that time for probably the first 6 or 7 years, I was literally paying into it. I was working
Mm,
7 days a week. 10 hours was a short day, and putting money in and borrowing money and growing something, trusting that it was going to work. And then all of a sudden, bam, there's this event, and it seems like it's an overnight success. FrameTec started 3 years ago. At
mm,
least we launched it 3 years ago, and so it's
yeah,
like this company that's on the edge of being a $1 billion company
yeah.
came out of nowhere in 3 years, overnight success. It took decades of many people grinding and killing themselves to get to the point. And so that was where the patience was. It was trusting that, hey, we're on the path and we're not quitting. And there's a time to quit, but most people, they think that the quitting is when it's not, and they quit and then they keep bouncing around. They get back in the end of line to start over again. And we're just over here grinding away, not willing to quit. We're just,
That's
and,
right.
and that's the difference between people that make something that's really impactful. They're not willing to quit, and they've had decades usually of doing something that gets them to that point where they have the overnight success.
It looks that way, but you know the true story behind it, and that's where I think a lot of people, a lot of us, I think humans are we're all visionaries. Like we're kids and we're dreaming about going outer space and how we can do things, and somewhere we lose that. But it's always the long game, no matter what. If you're super successful, the long game is just unnecessary. So let's zoom out 5 to 10, 20 years from now. What's the big vision for Frame Tech, for wealth freedom, for how you want to leave your mark in the world, Damon?
There's a path that we're on. The vision is that money is no longer part of the equation. That there is an abundance of housing. And we're at a pinnacle. We're at a turning point that people can start to see with AI and robotics, where there was this. There's been this chatter for the last 5 or 10 years about universal basic income, and just like people are arguing and freaking out about a lot of things. And the reality is, with generalized artificial intelligence and robotics, we're going to see a transformation that's going to happen. And humans are linear. Biologically, we're linear. We evolve very slow. It takes us thousands of years for our bodies to change, and our minds aren't all that different. It's so it's hard for us to imagine the world exponentially changing in less than 10 years. It took centuries for things to happen, and so we didn't
Yeah.
even notice it. Now we're trying to process it. So I see a world where there is literally not just infinite abundance that's out there, but we all understand it, we're experiencing it, and
Mhm.
it's an opening for people to go beyond money, go beyond grinding and checking in, and just I think most people are on a sustainability survival path, and
Yeah.
I honestly think it's unfortunately most people are they don't think that they can win the game, which is why I think we have a lot of people that are really mad about rich people. They're like, well, shit, I can't get there, so I might as well try to steal from them or take from them.
Right.
That's what happens when people don't buy into the idea that the dream is possible. We're at a crossroads where there's unlimited wealth being created, and it's going to create this abundance that we've never even. There's no way for us to even understand what that's ever. It's never been like this
Oh,
before.
I love that. I love that belief and that mindset. I am with that. That is exactly where I live, no matter. And for me, again, that's my faith. I see it, and I always say I have it, and the people are processing it because it's already there. It's just being processed. So I'm taking every day I get up and I do what I do. I'm just getting, not closer, but I'm unlocking the flow, the faster, more fluent flow of it. And I'm also unlocking, I feel a lot of it, like you said, is how we think. So we're unlocking it as we peel back those layers and reveal more of ourselves and clarity. As you said earlier in the podcast, it just unlocks it for us. So I just have to ask you, what is success for you and how do you define it?
This is so. I was with I'm blanking on his name. Uh, the guy that has the Don't Die Netflix special. I was with him in Vegas a couple weeks ago. Um, he basically is a human petri dish for his for all the testing he does, and he's like the most studied human being. And I was with him, and so one of the things he came with, and this will answer your question about success. He said the one thing you can do for your health is your sleep. And I'm going to tell you how to sleep better. You got to lower your heart rate before you go to bed. And here's some
Mm-hmm.
things: don't drink, don't eat within 4 hours, don't ruminate because ruminate will up you 5 to 25% in your heart rate. And I was like, I'm listening, going, okay, this is super simple, but we all mess it up. And he stops eating at 11 a.m. Like that's his last meal.
Oh,
So the funny part is I go, man, I've just been like waking up 2, 3 in the morning. Can't wait to start. I'm so happy, so excited about my life,
that
building,
way. That's
creating,
my
solving
time
problems.
too.
Yeah, the problem is I don't have enough sleep, so my body's not necessarily getting its deep sleep and its REM. But I'm so excited, and so part of it that's success. And what's more important to me is that there's fulfillment. That you're so success is very it's this fleeting thing. It's like winning the race, but the
Mhm.
fulfilling part was the training and the grind and believing that it's possible, and then discovering the trust you have in yourself to fulfill it. Like there's a different thing between. I'm not a huge fan of success. The fulfillment of the process. It's like the journey is more important than the pinnacle, because you get to the top of the mountain, you go,
And you're like,
okay, and
oh,
then what? Yeah,
oh,
great,
this is not.
whoop de doo.
You're like, huh, this is not, what do I do now?
Yeah,
Why is this so deflating? So just enjoy the journey. I love
yeah.
that. That's
At two
been my
o'clock in the
part.
morning, apparently, that's when it happens.
I am I've given up because I was having arguments with myself and taking melatonin so I could, when I do wake up, I go back, and now I'm like, I surrender. So what I'm doing now is going in earlier. So when I do wake up at 2 and I start working, well, that's when my day starts because I'm doing it whether I go to bed at 11, whether I go to bed at 8, whether I'm waking up. So I'm like, okay, this is a productive season. I'm going to stay in that zone and follow and just change my rhythm and go with it because it's here. So, and it's served me. It's been serving me. So I'm like, not me getting frustrated and doing it's because I'm not surrendering to it. Like I have to surrender whatever it is, whatever this time is. I'm just going to surrender it and go with it. Well
I
said.
I also think that once when you go and you engage in things, and eventually you're going to find the thing that you go, I am so lucky to be able to do this thing. And most people don't have that. Most people are doing the thing. My dad was like that. He did the thing that gave him the money. He hated his life. He hated his job, and he was miserable. And he took it out on us. And I remember at the end of his life, I was like, man, you are so weird. You're so nice and loving. And he's like, I was kind of an a-hole. And I'm like, yeah, you were terrible. And he said, man, I hated my job. He didn't have something that really gave him any type of fulfillment. He was doing it purely for survival. And if you do that, like, look, I get it. We have to have money, but what people do is they fall down the path where they keep going after money to get the things that they think that they want, that people are going to care about, that they don't care about, and they're always trapped. They're always in
Yes.
bondage, and that's
Yes.
the difference. You shift. And interestingly enough, when you're on a path where you're doing something that matters, it's like the Venn diagram where your purpose, passion, and the market, when they all kind of cross over each other.
Yeah.
When you find that type of thing where you're into it and it's meaningful and the market cares, then interestingly enough, if you can get the vision big enough, the money becomes this side effect, and it's like, all right, yeah, the more money came in, and I swear to God, people think that that's woo woo or something, but it is how it works. And I've gone through it multiple times. I understand this process. I felt it, and you go, yeah, yeah, there's more money, and you're like, then it's actually funny because it becomes a problem. Like, okay, I got to deal with this money that's coming in, and that's a reflection of the impact, the value that's been created, and so that's what
Yes.
people should focus on. Not how do you get more money; it's how do you get more impact? How do you deliver more value to people?
Right.
And then it all kind of happens. Interestingly enough.
And you take care of all the people that are committed to that vision and that solution that you're creating. And that's why FrameTech and the model you guys have is it seems so revolutionary. I wish it wasn't. You know what I'm saying? Like when I say I wish it wasn't revolutionary, I wish it was the norm. But I believe we're stepping into a time where that will be the norm of the day, because more and more visionaries like yourself, we're rising. We're rising. So we're right at coming down to the end. We do mindset bites to go, where I step away from the microphone and the camera and allow you to speak into our listeners and viewers. If it was your last thing to say to the world, what would you say that you'd want them to remember and take action on? So here we go.
So the thing that I think we have to all remember, and the thing I would tell myself if I was going back in time, taking a little time machine trek, is that you're the concern we have about what other people think about us is the thing that keeps us trapped and not pursuing our potential. And if we disconnect from that, the more we disconnect, in fact, the closer we get to not caring what other people think, there's this opening that happens, and you can't even understand how free you'll be until you stop caring what other people think about you. And then you sort of embrace this idea of being a crazy person. And guess what? Everything that is now revolutionary, that's changed the world, at one point was crazy. And so if you want to be part of that, you have to embrace being crazy and disconnecting, and that will change your entire life and the whole world.
Ooh, that is a mic drop. That is a mic drop. I mean, this is the kind of conversation that shifts perspectives and it pierces the mindset fog of a lot that most of us are trapped in. I definitely broke some limiting beliefs for me in this conversation. You've turned pain into power, failure into fuel, and business into a force of transformation. And for those individuals who are listening, what's your favorite way for us to connect with you?
I like to boil things down so people they don't just take more information and pile it up on their shelf help book, where they just put a book on the shelf,
Shelf
doesn't really
help.
do anything. The
Yeah.
shelf help books are just like they look pretty, and you can line them all up by colors and stuff, but then nothing happens in your life. So one of the things that I did this last year is I said, okay, what do people need? They need wisdom condensed down into some type of bite-sized snack that they can then take and go, okay, I can grab that and do something. So I wrote this 10-step formula. It's called Turnkey Retirement, and it's the 10 principles. It's the 10 steps to 10 million that you can read in 10 minutes and do this process over 10 years or less. And to me, 10 million is this, it's not just a number, because 10 million gives you escape velocity where you can you have choices, but it also transforms who you are. If you you can bump into 1 million or two. It doesn't even take anything other than just grinding, and all of a sudden you'll have 1 million or two.
Right.
But to get to 10 million, it changes who you are. And what happens is you end up with this confidence where you're truly free. So these are principles from building hundreds of millions of dollars of personal net worth, of building this $1 billion company, all these companies, the lessons condensed down into 10 minutes. And I say the idea of retirement is making it a turnkey system so that you can stop thinking about money. So download it. It's free. It's turnkeyretirement.com. That's what I would love everybody to go grab.
I love it. And we definitely, listeners and viewers, it's wherever you're listening or watching this, it is in the description as well. phenomenal. 10 minutes, mind blown. The efficiency, when you talk about 99% less waste, you mean that across the board. I am so one of your biggest, and I'm not going to say fans, I am going to be one of your distant mentees until I can find my way a little bit closer. And the fact that you're in Sedona, I don't know what you're doing, but I'll be watching so I can go. I love Sedona too. To our listeners, if you've ever been afraid of losing it all, let Damion remind you sometimes the bottom is the beginning. Keep building, keep believing, and most of all, keep mastering your mindset. Think, speak, do, become. I'm Dr. Alisa with my special guest and co-host today, Damion, saying, we'll catch you later. Go ahead and share this episode and get to turnkeyretirement.com. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.